people were demanding us to switch up the international tournament and speak more about Copa America, which for sure it deserves it. I'm loving it. I'm loving Copa America. I know with the COVID rules they got it through, and look, it's good games. Good games have been happening. Like Argentina, their defense is looking solid now with Cristian Romero.
Yeah.
And Martinez in goal. Fantastic goalkeeper. Really good saves he's been doing up there.
Yeah, I agree.
So, what do you think about Copa America?
I mean, aside from the 160 COVID cases that have presented itself since the beginning of the tournament, yeah, it's always anytime you put them, every team in the CONMEBOL in like a cage match. It's always fun. And this is a little bit of a refreshing or a different take on it where I guess only two, it's basically like a seeding structure where you have 2 sets of 5, top 4 go through, and then they go one, like March Madness style, 1 versus 4, 1 versus 4. Sorry, I showed my American there. But I do love the excitement behind it, and Brazil looks relatively unstoppable, and that's Neymar missing as many open chances as he has been making them. But ultimately, yeah, like there's a couple names that have really stood out to me, and Cuti Romero is definitely one. I mean, voted top defender in Serie A for a reason. For a team that when you think about Atalanta, you don't think about Atalanta as a defensive team. You think about them as offense as defense, right?
Yeah.
And Romero has been absolutely just phenomenal for Atalanta and has shown that he can do it for Argentina as well. And that is important.
That is
true. If you want an Argentina to win their first international trophy in like 27, 28 years, you need a Cuti Romero and an Otamendi to do what they can do in the center of defense to somehow stifle, whether it's Brazil, whether it's, some of these trickier teams like a Colombia in the knockouts, that'll be huge. So I didn't mean to spend that much time on it because one of the coolest narratives of this whole thing, and you probably might have been ready to talk about this, but Ben Brereton, you've heard about this guy, right?
Yeah, I've heard about him. Yeah.
22-year-old striker. He debuted and scored for Chile. I think he added an assist like the game later. Chile hasn't been lighting things up, but they've also been pretty decent. But this is a kid that was playing for Blackburn Rovers, was in the English youth setup for a long period of time. I don't know if anyone has actually gone in and read the story on how he was discovered, but Football Manager played a very central role to how it was discovered that he had a second nationality. And ultimately, the Chile Football Association reached out to him, Chilean Football Association. He accepted, and here he is starring a kid from Stoke-on-Trent. Here he is starring for Chile alongside, obviously, like an Alexis Sanchez, and it's really, really cool. Really cool that that's happening.
I think they had a draw, Chile, against, was it Argentina? 1-1?
Yeah. He assisted the late goal, right?
That was a big draw. Big draw. Like, Argentina since then, they've been looking fantastic, especially on the defensive. But that was a really good draw for Chile. About Brazil, I watched Brazil play two matches, and I'd like to highlight Fred, because Fred is playing really well for Brazil. He's performing really well. It's good to see that at Man United he had a couple of good games, but the bad games are very noticeable. But in the national team, he's very good. Casemiro, too. I wanted to highlight Casemiro, too. What a captain he is, because he stops the midfields by himself. Like that Real Madrid, he's very overlooked in my opinion. Like the legacy he has at Real Madrid with Kroos and Modric, that midfield is going to be iconic for years. And it wouldn't be iconic without Casemiro. He came at a time coming from a loan at Porto. And seeing that development and now watching Brazil play and seeing how key he is fantastic.
Sure.
And another player is Éder Militão. Éder Militão, I knew he was a baller because here in Portugal he won like 5 Defenders of the Month awards, like consecutive, something ridiculous. I can't
Right.
remember at the time, but he was fast. He could anticipate really well. He's a good ball playing center back. He can play as a fullback too.
Yep.
He's got a lot of tools in his arsenal. So I'm really happy to see Éder Militão playing. Thiago Silva too. Éder Militão and Thiago Silva performing really well in Copa America.
Yeah,
That
and
Brazil team is good.
he's one that's still trying to really get settled at Madrid.
Yes.
I mean, and I think once he gets it,
Yeah.
or once Real Madrid gets it, he'll be a massive part of that. So, all right. Well, you're talking about all these guys that are
He needs to get a grip.
older. They're older, right? Except Militao, who is he's 23 or maybe just turned 24.
Mhm.
I do want to highlight a couple of young guys to watch out
Yes.
for the way forward, and they're not on the better teams, right? They're not on
Okay.
Brazil, not on Argentina. When you have the glut of talent that Brazil and Argentina has,
Mhm.
there's a luxury to not having to bring along some 18-year-olds. But Ecuador, in particular, has
Mhm.
produced two 19-year-olds, Moises Caicedo. I don't know if I'm saying that name right.
The City kid,
Um,
right?
Yeah, well, actually, no, he's at Brighton. He'll be at
Okay.
Brighton. Yeah,
Oh,
he was
it's
back on.
it's the CDM, right?
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely,
yes,
and
yes.
he's been pretty phenomenal, and he's one of those ones. If you watch the ascendancy of Busuma, okay, Busuma at Brighton, and I get it. Brighton doesn't exactly knock everybody's socks off, but Busuma is being looked at within the Premier League as a lot of replacements, or some replacements in some of the bigger teams' midfields. And I think you've got a ready-made, if the transition works out correctly, a ready-made replacement in the form of this Caicedo kid, who actually, I believe it was the U20 World Cup where he really came onto the scene and had just a phenomenal overall performance in the tournament. So you have him, and then on top of that, well, actually, to go back to Brighton, you've got him and Jacob Motor, which is one hell of a midfield for years to come at
It's
Brighton.
good midfield, yeah.
It is a good midfield. But the other guy I want to talk about is a guy that has landed on the radar of Bayern Munich, Atletico Madrid, Newcastle. I had to throw Newcastle in there, but he's like 9 teams I think are looking for this kid because he's tall. He can win aerial battles. He also is a progressive passer. He's left-footed. Can act very comfortable on the ball. Doesn't mind taking people on. But it's Piero Hincapié.
Okay.
I think it might be Hincapié. But Ecuador has pretty much featured him at center back, and he has. They have a big game later today against Brazil. But he has been one of the best young defenders at the tournament, and definitely one if you're looking for somebody on Football Manager, I think you can probably do worse than him.
Well, about Moises Caicedo, like I only saw news about him going to United and it didn't go through. But I'm glad that he's going to a team in which he'll develop, and for sure he'll become a name that we'll all know, which is fantastic to see. So you highlighted Ecuador. I'm gonna highlight a team too with few talents, and I'm gonna go Uruguay. I think they're very overlooked. Valverde is one of the best box-to-box midfielders in the world.
I agree.
He is young, but he's extremely overlooked. That
Yeah.
midfield that they have, Bentancur and Valverde, and I am extremely happy about a player that I didn't know a lot about. I knew a lot about Gabriel Menino as a right wing back for Palmeiras, but I didn't know about their left wing back. And I'm really happy I'm watching Uruguay play, and I found out about Matia Vinha. Fantastic left wing back. Can play as a left mid. I went to do my research, and a left back. But with Abel, which is a phenomenal coach. I was off the record. I was telling you, for me, Abel is one of the top 3 young Portuguese coaches. Okay, and he's put Matia Vinha as a left wing back, and he's performing so well. And now in the Copa America, he's showing signs of being an extremely good player against the big teams too. So Valverde, Ugarte he's not there, but I'm at that those midfielders they have their building up. Darwin Nunes too. I'm liking what Uruguay is doing. It's long term. they might win a Copa America with these young guns improving, you know. So
Yeah. Yeah, I
uh,
agree, and that's not even adding to the fact. I think Facundo Torres in their last game got his first assist off the bench, and they do. They always have just a really nice stable of young talent. It's just whether or not they. I don't know. I mean, it's been almost 6 months since I've really heard of Maxi Gomez. And do you remember him? You remember him lighting up La Liga, right? He's really taken a step back, and yet I believe
mhm,
he still played a substitute role in their last game. So just these players come in and they take over. Uruguay is always one to watch, and
mhm,
they're fun to watch too. But it's still Cavani and Suarez's show, and whether or not they can get it done against Brazil that right now I think has 9 goals for, 1 goal against in the whole
mhm.
tournament, it's going to be interesting.
I
And also whether or not, I got to say, it was 5 years ago yesterday, 5 years ago yesterday, that Leo Messi walked off the pitch after losing the
Yes.
Copa America Centenario final, and he said, "I retire." Right,
Yeah.
internationally, I retire. And here he is back. He wants it, and we'll see
You
if
know, he wants it because the rivalry that is building up and that is happening while we speak.
yep.